Church, thank you guys for being with us this morning, whether you're church online or right here in person. We just invite you to stand to your feet and worship with us today. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Your freedom is all that I know. And He all made good. Jesus, when I met you, sing it out. When you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Up a shout of praise if you're happy to be in the house of the Lord this morning. We're going to keep worshiping. Sing this with me. I needed rescue. My sin was heavy, but chains break out the weight of your glory. I needed shelter. I was an orphan, but you called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you call my name, sing it out.
I ran out of that grave,
Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. One more time, lift up a shout of praise. Amen. Well, we're going to keep worshiping this morning. This next song talks about the Lord filling this place. So we're going to believe that this morning. God, we just invite you into this place this morning. Lord, let us just feel your presence today as we worship. There is a light that burns in the darkness. is a peace that settles around us. It is your love that sets our hearts ablaze. There is a light that burns in the darkness. There is a hope that washes the fear away. There is a peace that settles around us. Oh, it is your love that sets our hearts ablaze. Sing this with us. Father, we are on our knees with every heartbeat. We bring you this offering. Lord, come and fill this place. Father, we're crying out. Spirit, we need you now. Glorious love surrounds us. Lord, come and fill this place. There is a King who reigns in victory. There is a mercy strong enough to save. Do you believe that? Feel it rising up from the ashes. There is a love that overcame the grave. There is a love that overcame the grave. Father, we're on our knees with every heartbeat. We bring you this offering. Lord, come and fill this place. Father, we're crying out. Spirit, we need you now. Glorious love surrounds us. Lord, come and fill this place. Lord, come and fill this place. Oh, Jesus. And I will worship you. I'll worship you. I'll worship you always. And I will worship you. I'll worship you. I'll worship you always. Sing it with us. And I will worship you. I'll worship you. I'll worship you always. And I will worship you. I'll worship you. I'll worship you always. Lift your voices and sing it. And I will worship you. I'll worship you. I'll worship you always. And I will worship you. I'll worship you. I'll worship you always.
so thankful for your presence in this place this morning. God, that you do fill this place today. And as we sing, it is well, God, I just have to recognize that it's not always well. It's not always to sing these lyrics, God. So I pray this be the cry of somebody's heart this morning. Grand earth is quake before, moved by the sound of his voice. Seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken for my regard. Through it all, well with me.
God, we just lift our eyes to you this morning. And we just praise you, God, that you control the wind and you control the waves and you control galaxies, God. But yet you allow us to come before you. You allow us into your presence, God. So just let us humble ourselves this morning, God. Let us lift everything that we have and just hand it to you today, God. We ask for your blessing this morning. We ask for forgiveness. We just ask, God, that you can open our eyes and our ears and our hearts to all you have for us today. And everybody online and everybody here in the room, we're just going to lift that prayer together as we say in the name of Jesus, we say, amen. Well, what's up, Real Life Church? How's everybody doing today? You doing well? I love it. Man, it is so good to see everybody. And, we actually have a very special guest with us today. They're called Real Life Church Online. Hey, what's up, Real Life Church Online? Let them hear you today, KT. Let them hear you in the room. Did I freak you out a little bit? No, but they're a special guest, and we love it. You know what's really cool? I was kind of thinking about this. All of us in the room are a Real Life Church Online at one point or the other. You see, when you're taking that weekend trip, when you're not feeling well and you're at home, you can instantly, boom, become Real Life Church Online. But of course, we have some special folks that are Real Life Church Online all the time, and we just welcome them today. So online, I want you to throw up those likes. I want you to throw up those hearts. I want you to interact in the chat, and I'm going to give you a little challenge. I want you to share your prayer requests so we could be praying for you this week online, and I want you to share those praises, all the things that God's doing in your life. We'd love to read that and interact with you this week. We have other very special guests. That's you. Everyone right here in the room today. We're so pumped you're here, and we've got some new faces today, so can we make everyone who's brand new today feel super welcome right here in the room today? Let them hear you. We are honored that you're here with us today. Well, guys, look in the rows around you. Look at your little area here in the room today. And if you don't know someone's name, will you just ask, and will you offer your own? And let's get to know the people around us, and just greet them today however you feel comfortable. So that's my challenge to you. Go for it. Do that, and then have a seat. My name is Drew, by the way. Pleased to meet you. How do you do? It is so cool to see you guys connecting this morning. I love that. And I've already shouted out some people that are new today. We are just pumped that you are spending part of your weekend here with us. And I just want to encourage you, if you've never done this before, I want you to get your phone out right now, and I want you to text RL New to 97,000. If you're online watching us live, you can click the link you're seeing right now. You can also text that number I just said. But when you do that, we just want to get to know you a little bit. You see, we've got a follow-up team on our connection team that just loves to reach out to people and just, learn names. And we want to hear your story. What's your family story? What's going on in your life? How can we be praying for you? What questions do you have about Real Life Church? We love to just help you and connect you in any way that we can this week. So if you've never done that before, go ahead and reach out to us. And if you're in the room today and you've never visited our New Here booth before, can I just invite you to do that? We do have a small gift for you, just our way again of saying thank you for spending part of your weekend here with us at Real Life Church. We're super pumped to have you. So, all about challenges this morning. Let me throw another one out there if you're brand new. You see, some of us, some of you this morning, it might have been, new. It might be maybe this morning was a new routine. Getting up a little bit earlier than maybe usual on a Sunday, going a place you haven't been before. Can I just encourage you to pray about this week, to pray about new routines. What would that look like for you? What would that look like for you and your spouse? What would that look like for your family? If you started a new routine, you started it today, what would happen if you stretch that out these next couple of weeks? Well, I'm not a fortune teller, right? But I can predict a couple things. Number one, you're going to feel known and welcome by the friendly faces at Real Life Church. Number two, I really think that God is going to have a word for your life. I don't know what that word's going to be, but I know that when we are faithful and we open up our ears and our hearts, man, he's always got something for us. So can I just encourage you, just those 2 words, pray about new routines on your Sunday morning. We're just so pumped you're here, and we'd love to see you again. So a little bit more about us here at Real Life Church. You know, we're a church on a mission. That mission is far beyond anything that's happening in this room right now. You see, we really feel like around these parts that our mission starts when we leave here after a Sunday morning, when we go out into our community, when we go to work on Monday, when we interact with the neighbors that live around us. You see, our mission is to see people far from God discover their real life and purpose in Jesus. And when I say those words, far from God, and when I combine those with the words close to us, I bet faces are popping up to you right now in your head, or names. I know that happens to me every time I say it too. So let's just add another challenge. Why don't we just keep going with that today? Can I challenge you to just join us on mission in a super simple and practical way? When those names pop up, when those faces pop up, will you just take a second and pray? Just pray over those people in your life that's close to you and far from God. I'm not saying that we have all the answers at Real Life Church. I'm not saying that this is the only place, but man, I tell you, there's a God that loves them. There is a Savior that died for them. And I just think that, man, if we could at least lift them up in prayer this week, we can really just get the ball rolling on that. You know, I like to say a lot, you know, for people that are new, maybe you're writing chapter 1 of your story. Well, maybe chapter 1 of their story starts with your prayer. So can I just encourage you to do that this week? Man, you know, we talked last time too about not counting the people in the building, but counting the empty chairs. So again, just a fun little challenge for you there, just something to think about as you pray this week. It's going to be awesome. Well, guys, I'm super pumped because we're continuing this awesome new series called Prodigal. And if you've read through the New Testament before, you know that Jesus, to put it very lightly, he ruffled some feathers while he was here on earth. And really, you know, kind of summing that up, Jesus really showed us that we need to stop drawing lines to keep people out, but we really need to start focusing on crossing lines to bring people in. Of course, one of the ways he shows us that is in Luke 15, the story of the prodigal son. But we're going to continue just that theme this week as we have a very special message from a very special guest. Give it up big for Barry Hardee. He's going to bring us a word from God's word. Come on, Barry.
Drew, I appreciate it. Drew always gives you just a good welcome, just a good setup. Man, thank you so much. I just wish I could get something in my coffee. I don't know, Holly, what's he putting in there? 3 shots of espresso. Is that the secret? That's the key, right? Man, I want to welcome you guys to Real Life, whether you guys are with us in person or you're on with us online. I'm so excited to hang out with you guys today. We're in the middle of an awesome series called Prodigal, and it is so exciting just to see what God's Word has for us talking about this. And if you were with us last week, or if you weren't, Pastor Sean just laid a great foundation talking about the hearts that are in the stories in Luke chapter 15 we're going to talk about. Jesus tells some great stories, and he communicates truth in a way that just brings it home, just the way that he does that. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But I also want you guys to know is that this message series is leading into Easter. And Easter is going to be an awesome time of Real Life. I want to put that out right now. We're going to have baptism. It is going to be so cool, so don't miss that. But I want you guys to just remember, keep Easter in mind. And in fact, we're going to go to Luke chapter 23 because everything that happens in Easter really frames the stories that Jesus tells us here in Luke chapter 15. And Pastor Sean did a great job talking about the heart of the younger son, the heart of the older brother, and the heart of the father. And Pastor Sean, I know you're not here today, but I want to thank you. You give me the best part of the parables, the lost son, the prodigal son. It is such a powerful message, and it's one of the greatest stories ever told. In the Bible, it's one of the best ones. Most people that are in church, out of church, they know this story. So if you haven't heard it, buckle your seats. It's powerful. And the reason I love the idea of a lost son is, let's have a little bit of confession time. Have you ever lost a kid? Raise your hand if you have. There's a few of you out there like me, right? Well, I don't know where you guys lost your kid. I lost my kid at Worlds of Fun. Oh, that's scary, right? We just got in the park, too. We walked in the gate, and Cole turned around, and he's gone. And there's throngs of people, hundreds and hundreds of people. And what happens when you lose your kid? What sets panic, right? Like all the worst thoughts in your mind just start running through. And some of you guys might even be having anxiety, like, oh man, I remember that day. Can I tell you, if you have a lost son at Worlds of Fun, go to guest services, that's where he's at, and he's hiding there. So there was somebody looking out though, right? And the reason that being lost is so scary is that sometimes we don't know how to get home. But can I tell you that there's a God that's searching for you? There's a God that cares about lost things. And there's a God that is out there actively pursuing you right now. So let's race to Luke chapter 23. I'm not going to throw any of these verses up, but I would encourage you as we move towards Easter, take some time and go read those passages. So we're in the midst of Jesus being crucified. And if you've ever seen the movie The Passion or you know anything about it, it is a brutal, brutal act. And Jesus talked about it before it ever happened. And he said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to be crucified. And even some of the disciples said, no, we're not going to let that happen. He said, I'm going to be crucified, and here's why I'm going to do it. And this is the important part, and it leads back to the lost son. He said, if I do this, what it's going to do is it goes, I'm going to pay all your sin, all your wages, all your penalties for all time, for all people, forever. Not only your past sins, but your future sins. It's almost like you're pre-forgiven. Man, that's a pretty bold claim, right? Can you imagine if somebody that you knew said, hey, I'm going to take care of everything for you for the rest of your life? You'd be like, bold claim. But he said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you this. He goes, and this is how you're going to know you can trust me. He goes, I'm going to get nailed to a cross. They're going to put me in a hole for 3 days, and then I'm going to be raised again. Isn't that powerful? Because if he could pull that off, and we can trust him for that, maybe we can trust him for the rest of the promises. Maybe we can trust him to take away that condemnation, that sin, the places that we've put ourselves, the places that we don't know how to get out of, the places that we feel lost. And it's a bold claim. And here's the other thing that sometimes, the older I get, the more I read the Bible and the more I learn. You think that you read the Bible one time and you pick it all up. No, absolutely not. God keeps speaking to you and keeps teaching you things. And one of the things that I've picked up is this, is that I thought about in the idea of being crucified and being killed. Can you imagine one of the cool things that I'm weird, right? I like history. One of the cool things that you can learn about is what are the last words of famous people. And you can go through, and it tells a lot about who they are, about what they cared about. And I tell you, in the last words of Jesus, if you go through Luke 23 and you read what he cares about and what he talks about, in the midst of him being crucified and dying, it shows you the heart of God. It's what he cares about. It's what he is there for. It's what his passion is. And what's happening in the midst of being crucified? He has a heart of forgiveness for people. And I don't know, do you guys know about the crucifixion? Can I tell you, Jesus was having a real bad day, right? He was stripped naked in front of the public, you know. Public speaking is not my thing, and it feels like being naked in front of all of you guys, right? That's what it's like for me. But Jesus went through so much more than that. He was literally stripped naked in front of everybody, his hometown, friends, family, his enemies. Everybody saw him at his most vulnerable. He was humiliated. And on top of that, he was beat, scourged, had a crown of thorns put on his head. And my words are not doing justice to what he went through. And as they nailed him onto the cross, can I tell you, it was like the ultimate battle of good and evil. And you had Satan and his enemies saying, we win. We win. He's on the cross, he's being raised, he's getting ready to die. Well, that wasn't good enough for these guys. They had to gloat too. And what blows me away is that in the last words of Jesus, is that how could you gloat? Because he sits up there, and if you listen to some of his last words, he says this, Father, forgive them. Because they don't know what they're doing. Isn't that powerful? And wouldn't you think that would change the people's minds that are around him, the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, the Roman centurions? Don't you think they would hear that words like, man, there's something different about this guy. Here we are killing him, and he wants to forgive us? But that's not what happens here. That is not what happens. The battle of good and evil, his enemies are saying, we win. Well, that's not good enough. So now it's time to gloat. And that's what they do. And they're like, Messiah, Christ, that's who you claim to be, right? I thought you were the Christ. Come down. Show us who you really are. If that's who you are, prove it. And on top of that, they put a sign right above him. And it says, King of the Jews. And it was in 3 different languages. And it's hard to really get what's going on there. It's full of sarcasm. They weren't declaring him the King of the Jews. They're saying, oh, look, Yeah, right. Look, King of the Jews. That's who this guy is. I don't know. Okay, another confession time. I've lost a kid. Can I give you another confession? I've thought about this really hard, and I've decided that Jesus is a better person than me. I know. You guys are like, no, wait, Barry, we know you. You're a really good guy. Drew's up here he's like, come on, Barry, think about this. No, seriously. Because if that was me up on the cross, and I had all these people around me just making fun of me and just hurling insults, questioning my identity, who I was, because I know who I am, I'm probably going to jump down and there's going to be some butts getting kicked, right? That's me. I'm going to be like, oh, yeah? Who's the king now, baby? Hey, I have a bad heart. I have a hard heart. Pray for me. I'm not like Jesus. Jesus is a much better person than I am. What was on Jesus' heart? Jesus' heart was for forgiveness. And here's the crazy thing. A lot of people don't realize this, is that Jesus wasn't crucified alone. Do you guys know that? And we don't know how many people were crucified him because the Romans used crucifixion as the death penalty. That's how they got rid of the people that disagreed with him. Well, we know there was at least 2 people that were crucified with Jesus on that day. And the one guy on one side, he got in on the action with everybody else that was insulting God, also insulting Jesus. He said, hey, Christ, hey, Messiah, save yourself and save us with you. This isn't what it sounds like. This isn't faith. This isn't what it looks like. This is selfishness. And he's just piling in on Jesus, saying, hey, work some of that spiritual magic that you think you've got, some of that spiritual voodoo. Get me out of the situation because I don't want to be here. I don't really care about you. I just want to go back to doing what I did before. So you have this criminal that's just throwing it on just like everybody else. The second criminal, the second thief on the cross, he looks at the situation and said, hey, dude, shut up. Right? He's like, we're all in the same spot here, aren't we? But even more than that, he says this about, and it's such a powerful verse. Go check it out. He says, we have reaping the just rewards of what we've done. We broke the law. We knew the consequences. Hey, this is what we deserve. But this man is innocent. He points at Jesus. This guy didn't do anything. So here's the thing that really ties back into Luke 15, which we're going to get there in a minute. The lost son. This guy had a realization. He had a change of heart. He changed his mind. And he looked at Jesus and said simply this. He said, when you come into your kingdom, Jesus, will you remember me? And the coolest thing happened. And Jesus made a promise. He said, this day you will be with me in paradise. And there's so many things when we go into church and we go into religion, we put all these rules and these stipulations. All right, you have to do X, Y, and Z. You have to live this way. You have to be this type of person to be worthy of God. And that's not the story that Jesus gives here. That is not what happened. With this little tiny faith, this 5-minute faith, Jesus made a promise, said, yes, you can be with me. And I don't know the story of this guy, this thief that said, remember me. Had to be a crazy one. Look where he was at. He was getting killed for something that he did. He was lost. And in a moment where he had no place else to turn, and he knew he was completely destitute and had nothing to give, nothing he could change, he did the only thing that he knew he could do, is that he turned his eyes to Jesus and said, remember me. Everybody's got a story just like this guy does. And I don't know what your stories are. I know some of them. I know my story. But stories are powerful. The stories of being lost and being found and coming back home to where we knew we were supposed to be. I want to take a quick second. I want you to check out Clint's story.
How could my first time going to church be this good? It was a setup. Growing up, God wasn't necessarily spoken about in my family. We weren't allowed to go to church. They had no intentions of living a life with God in their lives at all. It was a coping mechanism by far. Heaven was a place that somebody went to be happy with them dying. God absolutely did not exist in my family, but I always knew that there was something there. I always knew there was a missing piece to the puzzle that I just wasn't being told about. I grew up in Harrisonville. My dad was hopping job to job. My mom held down a job somewhat. My dad was a drug dealer for a little bit from what I remember. I had a very eventful life. Always had a lot of people over, always having the cops over. A lot of people would envy my life as a child because I was able to roam the town or go wherever I wanted to, but I wouldn't wish that on anyone, having no structure in their life like that. I was striving to get out on my own to prove that I can be better than my dad and better than all that. So when I was 20, I met my now wife, Kat, actually at Applebee's. I was serving tables. I had them tight jeans on. But she used to come in a party of 10 to 20 people and quite loud and rowdy. So they had to give them to the server who could deal with them. Well, I made light of it. They were coming in and I got to know them. Then Paul blurted out that Kat wanted my numbers, and that was all history from there. A couple months into our relationship, I was introduced to her family. Right away, they knew that about me, that I didn't go to church or anything like that, and they didn't judge. I seen their faith, and we would go to big get-togethers, Thanksgiving, and it would be 40 people, and we would all line up during prayer and hold hands, and that meant a lot to me. That was completely new to me. I'd never seen that before, and that just felt so wholesome in itself. They have definitely played a big role in my search for God. This was my imaginary dream life, living, for God and going to church on Sunday and taking my kids and believing in God and being happy like that, because I've seen a happiness that you just don't see in everybody else when you see someone who has accepted God. I was driving home from work one day, and I was leaving Jack Stack in Martin City, if you know anything about that, but I was just blasting up Holmes Road up past that park, and something overcame me that moment that said, dude, slow down. It's covered wildlife on both sides, and a deer walked out in front of my vehicle as I was blasting up that road. So, and I'd hit my brake, I was doing 20 because I was just being extra cautious at that moment. Something came over me, and a deer walked out and stood in my lane. And I was already going, 20 miles an hour, so it was no big deal. I stopped and it was all good. Another one was my grandpa had died, and it had been a couple years, and I had just very little communication with my grandma, and something came over me and said, dude, you need to go see your grandma. I had been with my wife now for 3 months, and it was time for her to meet my wife, and we went out and I took her out to breakfast, and I'd never done that before because I was 20 years old and had a good job, and I was able to provide those things. And 2 weeks later, she passed away suddenly. I felt so whole knowing that I had seen her 2 weeks before, and she had met my future wife, and it was all signs. Something came over me, and I know that was a sign. So my brother, he was deep and heavy into drugs, and he went to jail for a while, and he found God before I did, and it was just another sign, another poignant way through. My brother had a really rough life like I did, and he turned to meth. I turned to being better than he did, better than my dad was. My Uncle Mike and my brother, they come to me and they try to talk about God, and I just want to question things, and I ask them questions that they can't answer. So I remember telling my wife for the first time that I was ready to go to church. So I pretty much left it up to her, and she had picked the church out, and she said, are you ready to go? And I said, no, maybe next week. So next week rolls around, and it happens to be my brother's birthday, of course, and so I said, I'm ready to go. We pull in, and I'm already wanting to leave immediately, before I even get there. There's people waving, and I didn't like it at first. I was just, the only thing I can think of is they want your money. They just want something. But I walk in those doors, and the first person we see is Jill Smith. And I don't know who Jill is, but my wife does, and she hugs her and introduces me and everything like that. We kind of felt at home immediately. We're getting greeted left and right by people that we actually do know, and then Drew comes out, and Drew's just infectious. So we get the kids enrolled and everything like that, and we go back and we sit down, and Barry is talking. This dude changed my life in 30 minutes. Let me tell you what, Barry was talking directly to me. I can't give you all the details, but he was talking about people like me coming to God. So when we get done, we get the kids out, and I don't really say a word until we get to the car. And I look my wife dead in the eye and I say, "You set me up, didn't you?" And she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Don't play this. You set me up. You told these people that it was going to be my first time, and he was talking to me. That guy doesn't know me, but he was looking at me the whole time. You set me up." She said, "No, I didn't set you up." And it might have took a few weeks to realize that wasn't a lie. She didn't set me up. It just doesn't make sense, from the things that I've learned and the things that I've learned in school maybe, and nothing made sense, and I always questioned everything. But the signs were there. Very first chance I could get, I asked Sean, I said, "How can you tell me that Jesus is real from a book?" And he said, "Was Abraham Lincoln real?" And I said, "Absolutely. There's stories about him. There's portraits, pictures of Abraham Lincoln. There's everything that's right here." And he says the same for Jesus Christ. And it was like, wow. I've never been put it straightforward like that. All these signs that led me to real life, and then all around me, these people so close to me in my life, it meant so much to them. Like my brother and my wife and my uncle, it meant so much to them for me to give God a chance. So I tried it out, not only for them, but for myself, because I was ready. It was time. Sean always asked at the end of the service, if anyone wants to let Jesus Christ in their heart right now, just raise your hand. I was weary for the first couple times, I was embarrassed, don't put your hand up right now, everyone's looking. And one day I just did, I was like, you know what, open up my heart. And I did. And I thought my heart was full. I have a beautiful wife and 2 awesome kids, but you never know that your heart is missing something. And then he came in, and I realized that I had so much room in my heart. And now it's full. And he's always been there, knocking on the door, and just waiting for me to open it. And when you finally do, it's amazing. I feel like I needed God. My family needed God. My marriage needed God. My kids need God. I needed it more than anyone besides him knows how much I need it. If there was one thing I could say to somebody who is questioning faith, is that is God working through you to question that, and to give my church, give Real Life just one Sunday, and I guarantee you'll be back. Just give them one chance. Most of my life now, but 5 months, I'm so glad that I came home to God.
Yeah, give it up for Clint. Man, what an awesome story. It just reminds us, and this is really where we're leaning into today, is God pursuing you, like Clint talked about. God is always there knocking at the door. Well, he's waiting for just a little bit of change of heart, a change of direction. God's looking for something. Another quick confession. I can't see anything past the second row, Clint, so I wasn't looking at you. So if anybody else is feeling on the spot, it's not me. It's God talking to you today. So we're going to run through this. And so really fasten your seatbelts, because this is really powerful. God is pursuing lost things because God cares about them. He's not like the rest of the world that wants to throw stuff away. He's pursuing you. You're not too far. And so as we get into Luke chapter 15, we're going to start reading it here in a minute. I come back to the reason sometimes I skip ahead, I get ahead too fast, is that there's an idea of why Jesus is telling stories in the first place. And he's telling a story here because he was dealing with some issues and he was wanting to get to the heart of it. So he wanted to tell a couple parables. And so in Luke chapter 15, he tells 3 stories of a lost sheep, a lost coin, and a lost son. So I'm going to go through this real quick. So if you guys will read with me, we'll start here on Luke 15. The first couple of verses really frame on why Jesus was telling the stories in the first place. He said, now the tax collectors, all right, I need to stop there for a quick minute. Now, when you think of the tax collectors, you're thinking of what? The IRS, right? No. These guys were way worse. That's not who the tax collectors were. Yes, they did collect taxes. So historically, here's what happened. When Rome conquered a territory or a new country, they would come in and they would take local people and they would set them up. And they would be of their own people. So in Israel, he came and he took Jewish people, or the Roman emperor did. And what he would do is he's like, you go collect the taxes. So what they did, though, they turned their backs on their people, on their faith. They became disqualified. They took advantage of everything they'd ever had in their life. And that's what these people were. And they were the most hated people in that land. That's who the tax collectors were. So now the tax collectors and the sinners, one more pause. When you hear the word sinners, there's a context here. It's people that had moral failings. And most of the time in the Bible, when it says sinners here, it has a context of a sexual brokenness. You think of the story where they came and they threw the woman at Jesus' feet because they accused her of adultery? It's the same idea. It's the same word. And so now the tax collectors and the sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. They were there to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Can I tell you that Jesus hears what you're saying? So he's like, all right, you guys are going to mutter? You're upset with the people that I hang out with. These are my party people. These are the people that I do life with. The sinners, the tax collectors, the people that you hate. Check these stories out. And he has 3 parables. If you don't know what a parable is just an earthly story to explain a spiritual truth. I'm going to take something that you understand, whether it's a sheep or a coin or a son, and I'm going to use it to explain something that I've got for you. And this is the reason that Jesus tells this story. So he says this, then he told him this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. He's not talking about sheep here. This is a metaphor again. So Jesus continues here. He says, I tell you that in the same way that there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner, that's who he's really talking about, the tax collectors and the sinners, who repents, than over the 99 righteous people who do not need to repent. Isn't that powerful? Jesus is looking for the one sheep that took off. And can I tell you that sheep aren't smart? So it happens. So Jesus goes and pursues, just like the shepherd would go pursue the one. And when he finds that sheep, that is what he's going to rejoice about. He is so happy that he found that sheep that got lost out on his own, getting ready to get destroyed by wolves. And he rejoices and he goes home. He's like, all right, if you don't like sheep, I've got another one here for you. It says, or suppose a woman who has 10 silver coins, it doesn't say what the coins are, I don't know if they're silver dollars or what, and loses one. So think of it this way. She lost 1/10 of everything she had. She lost 1/10. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends. When you lose something, you go searching for it. You pursue. You turn over everything. Is my wife in here? I don't think she is. She lost her wallet a couple weeks ago. She turned the house upside down. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There's a panic. There's a sense of loss. And she did everything she could to find that. Same way with this lady. So what happens? And she gathers her neighbors together and says, rejoice with me. I have found my lost coin. And in the same way, again, we're not talking about coins. We're talking about sinners. There is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Jesus says there's a party in heaven when that sinner comes back. All right, maybe you don't like sheep. Maybe you don't like coins. Maybe this one will hit you. This is Jesus. He's throwing a couple jabs. He's coming in with the right hook with the lost son, the prodigal son. This is the story you probably have heard. Jesus continued, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. He's saying basically, hey, I wish you were dead. I want my inheritance now. So the father divided his property between them. And he said, not long after that, the younger son got together all that he had and set off for the distant country. And there he squandered his wealth in wild living. Now, if you go back and read the Greek, when he talks about squandered his wealth, it talks about he lost his mind. He went as far as he could. He spent everything he had, and then some. You guys ever been on that trip? A lot of us have, haven't we? That's who this guy was. That's where this son was. He says, after he spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. He didn't have anything left. There's a famine in the country. He's destitute. And so what did he do? He went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him in the field to feed the pigs. I don't know if you guys know anything about the Jewish faith. At that point, that guy was as low as he possibly could get. To be associated with pigs disqualified him from his family. It disqualified him from his faith. And he was dirty. He had nothing left. He had no place to go. And it gets worse. He longed to fill his stomach. He was starving with the pods that the pigs were eating. He was hoping just to get the stuff that the pigs were dropping in the manure. But it says that no one gave him anything. Here becomes one of the most powerful verses in the Bible. And this is the truth of any son that's lost. It says, when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving. I will set out and go back to my father. And he prepares his speech. He says, I'm going to say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to the father. Can I tell you that is so important? That is so powerful. He came to his senses. He changed his mind. And he decides to get up to the father and go that way. And here's the other powerful part. And he says, but while he was a long way off, his father saw him. The father was looking. The father was searching. And he was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. And that's not the end of the story. Cliffhanger, come back next week. We're going to keep going into this. Because there's some great truths they're going to continue. But I want to hone in on the heart of the younger son. Because I want you guys to think about this. He changed his mind, and he turned around, and he changed his heart in his direction. That's the only thing in the whole universe in this story that changed. He was still in the same spot. He was still dirty, filthy. He stunk like pig crap. Have you guys ever been on a pig farm? Crap's not a strong enough word. It is nasty. He's in this condition. He's disqualified. And he has his speech all prepared. And he says, all right, this is what I'm going to tell. This is what I'm going to tell my father. Because the only thing that I know, this only thing that I remember at this point, is that I think I have a father that cares about me and loves me. And that's what I'm hoping. At least I know I don't get to be a son anymore, but I'm hoping just to get to be a slave, a hired servant. And the father comes running out. And he doesn't even allow him to finish that speech. But he says it. He says, Father, and then the son said, and the Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to the servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put the ring on his finger, the sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this the son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost, but now he's found. And so they began to celebrate. And God is pursuing you. God is looking to call you home. So many of us find ourselves in the spots that are dirty and disqualified. And we think, God can't use us. God doesn't want us. Here, the father threw his arms around this dirty kid. Son had disqualified himself and said, welcome home. Here's where we're going to land. 3 really deep philosophical lessons. So this is going to be really hard. And you're going to be like, oh man, I didn't know Barry was that smart. But I want you guys to pay attention. Follow on a YouVersion, take some notes here. This is really, really deep. 3 lessons to take away here. Lesson number 1. Sheep get lost, and they stay lost until somebody cares enough to go find them. That's just true, right? You guys been around sheep? I was teasing my wife earlier, but she was really smart. She grew up around sheep. She said sheep are the stupidest animals on earth. If somebody says, man, you're as smart as a lamb, it's not a compliment. You shouldn't take it that way. It is not a good thing. But sheep do dumb things and they get lost. Jesus said, I'm not talking about sheep. I'm talking about you. I'm pursuing you. And I want you to come home. I want to throw you across my shoulders and bring you in. And when I say you put your name there because we've all been there. God cares about you and he's looking for you. So sheep don't stay lost until somebody goes looking for them. Number 2, this is another one, really, really deep. Guess what? Coins don't lose themselves. They just don't. They don't jump out of your pockets. They don't fall out of your purse. It's like, all right, I'm going to hide underneath the car. I'm going to go in the couch cushions. That's not what happens. Coins don't lose themselves. Coins get lost because why? Somebody wasn't taking care of it. Maybe that's you today. Maybe somebody didn't take care of you. So before we get to 3, so just sum that up. Sheep get lost until somebody goes looking for them. And that's what happens. We all make those decisions sometimes. We all get in a spot where, how did I get here? I'm not throwing any stones. It's just, it happens. Or maybe you were like a coin and somebody didn't take care of you. Maybe you were abused, you were neglected, you were thrown away. Again, not throwing stones, but it happens. If you're lost, God's pursuing you. Last lesson. Sometimes you get lost because you decided to do something stupid. You're like, oh, Barry, you had me till then. That's not PC. Don't call me stupid. I'm not calling you stupid. I just said you did something stupid. I've done something stupid. And when you read the story of the prodigal son, you can't go into it and not know that he'd made a stupid decision. If you want to win that argument, yes, yeah, 100%, you're right. He did something stupid. But in that moment where he needed something, he came to his senses, he changed his mind, he changed his heart and his direction. What did he need at that point? Did he need somebody pointing and poking their finger in his chest? He needs a lot of stuff, but what he needed first was grace. And it's like the thief on the cross. That guy needed some truth too, and truth always follows grace, but they don't get them mixed up. Grace always comes first, and that's the lesson that we get from Jesus on the thief on the cross. And that's what the prodigal son needed as well. And maybe that's what you need. Maybe you're here to hear those words. Because maybe you've been to places, you've been to a church, because Lord knows I've been there, where they walk in and they're like, Barry, you screwed up. I'm like, I know. But I don't need that finger in my chest at that point. And if you've been there, man, I'm sorry. But can I tell you that God is not here to put a finger in your chest. God is not here to bring you condemnation. He will bring you truth. And he'll bring it a little bit at a time because we're usually not smart enough to figure it all out at once. But he always leads with grace. So if you're lost, God is pursuing you and he's looking to bring you back home because the Lord knows we all had our reasons why we left. And God's not condemning you for that. But he said, hey, it didn't work out. Come back home. Because here at Real Life, and Sean really hammered this last week, and this is, I want to reiterate it, and we're about to be done here, is that at Real Life, we want to kill religion. And that's what he said that he wants to do all the time, and I'm right there with him. Because I've been at that church where you had to meet a certain code or criteria to come in the doors, and that's not us. You can belong here before you believe. That's right. Because we believe that we want to give God as much time to fix your life as Satan had to screw it up. Drew said it earlier. We're on a mission at Real Life to see people far from God, to see people that are in the pig pen, that are disqualified, come home and find their real life and purpose in Jesus. And I can't tell you how much faith you have to have. Apparently, it looks a whole lot like what the thief on the cross was. A little 5-minute faith, something small. It doesn't have to be that big. But it does require a change of heart, a change of direction. And that's it. And God's waiting there for you. If you're hearing these words and you heard Clint's story, can I tell you that God is pursuing you today? And it doesn't matter how far you ran, how much you lost, how much you squandered. It doesn't matter. Because God is welcoming you here. He wants to throw that party. Would you guys pray with me today? Guys, we come before you in prayer. Again, I don't know everybody's story here. I don't know where everybody's at, where they've been, and where they're going. But I do know where you're at. And I know it's in the midst of pursuing us. And I really want to pray for 2 groups today, God. The first group is this. Maybe you've been a Christian. Maybe you've come home a long time ago, but maybe you've lost your passion. Pastor Sean also talked about this, is that we're getting to a size where it's really easy to be comfortable and get off mission. And we're not going to do that. So maybe you're here today And you've heard those 3 parables again, the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son. And if you're like me, you're thinking of a lost coin, a lost sheep, or a lost son right now. God's put somebody on your heart. Somebody that you can pray for, somebody that you can reach out to. Just wrap your arms around them and let them know that God loves them. And can I encourage you to do that today? If that's you today, put that person in your mind. When you get out of here, out of this gathering, drop them a text, give them a call, tell them that you care about them. God's pursuing them. Second group I want to pray for today is this, is that maybe you walked in here today, you had no expectation, you had no idea what you were getting into. And if you're like Clint, you might not have liked it right off the bat. And maybe you still don't have it all figured out. But maybe at this moment you've realized that, yes, I'm lost and I don't know where I'm going. Maybe you don't know how you got there. Maybe somebody neglected you and left you on the side of the road. Maybe you made that dumb decision, but you don't know how to get there from there and how to get back home. Can I tell you, not all it takes is a small change of heart, a small change of direction. Turn your face back towards God. You can pray a prayer, and the prayer doesn't save you, but the prayer is a reflection of that change. So if that's you today, and you're tired of being lost, you're tired of being dirty and disqualified, and you're willing to come back to a home, even in the condition you're in, because that's where God is willing to meet you, pray something like this. God, I've lost everything, and I've destroyed everything in my life, and I don't know where else to turn. All my sins and indiscretions have taken me to a place that I had no idea that they would go. God, please take those things, strip them away from my life, allow me to come back home into your kingdom, and I will pursue you for the rest of my life. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, can we give it up for everybody today that prayed that prayer? Never forget that God is pursuing the lost son, and there's a party waiting on us.
And if you prayed that prayer today, this is not the end, but it's actually the beginning of a journey and you starting to figure out what it looks like to follow Jesus. And we are so excited to help you get started on that journey. We have a couple of next steps for you. The first one is this: text RL NEXT to 97,000. And what it's going to do is going to provide you with some resources, as well as connect you with a member of our team who just wants to pray for you and really just answer any questions that you might have as you get started on this exciting journey. The second step is make sure on your way out, there's a table back there that has some red bags on it. Make sure you grab one of those that has a Bible in it for you, as well as some next steps, some resources to help you get started on that journey. And Barry today talked about what it looks like to just show relentless love to others and how we can do that by just helping them come home, helping them figure out that this is a place that they belong. We have a couple of practical next steps for you today to figure out how to do that. And one of them is this: next week we have this really cool thing that we do here at Real Life Church called Crash Course. And it's an opportunity for you guys to come and check out how Real Life Church might be home for you. How you can figure out how your gifting, how your calling, all of that can be a part of the bigger picture of the kingdom of God here at Real Life Church. And it's something that happens next Sunday. It's at Pastor Sean and Diane Petrie's house from 2 to 4:30 next Sunday afternoon. So if that's something that you're interested in, hop on to reallifechurchkc.com. You can get signed up today or just get more information about what that's about. Another cool next step that we have for you is something that we're doing next week called child dedication. And there is no better way for you to align the heart of your family with the heart of God than saying that we're on mission together as a family to raise our kids in a godly way that He would have us to raise them. And so just to tell you a little bit about what that looks like, we're going to invite your family to come on stage. We're just going to tell a little bit about your story and then just have some members of our leadership pray over you for wisdom and just honestly blessings over your future as you get started on this journey as a family to raise your kids in a godly way. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can also go to reallifechurchkc.com, and our events page has all of the information on how to get signed up for that today. Your generosity here is making a big difference at Real Life Church. And that means that every single hand that was raised this morning, every single life that's transformed, all of this that happens is as a result of you making a decision to continue to be faithful each and every week to giving here at Real Life Church. And if you're new here this morning, this is free. We hope this gathering was a blessing to you, and we want to make sure that this is something that's for you, and we don't necessarily want something from you today. But if you do call Real Life Church home, we do have a couple of ways that you can give. And the first is to go to reallifechurchkc.com. You can text any amount to 84321, or if it's more convenient for you, there's also a giving box in the back. You can drop cash or check back there as well. So we've talked today a little bit about what it looks like to help people come home. And these prodigal stories have been really powerful. And over the next couple of weeks, you guys are going to have an opportunity to be an inviting church. We have an opportunity to invite those friends in our life that are far from God, those people who might need to come, who have a story just like Clint, right? And so a really easy opportunity for you to do that is Easter Sunday. I cannot believe it's coming up in just a couple of weeks. But this is a really great opportunity for you to invite those family members, those friends in your life who may not normally come on an average week to church. And so we have a really cool experience back in the kids area. They're going to do a scavenger hunt back there, invite your friends with kids. We'll have a photo booth if you're like me and you don't like to pay for family photos and you just want to take your free photo that morning. And then also we're doing a really cool thing. We're doing baptism on Easter Sunday. So if you have started a relationship with Jesus, but you haven't yet taken that step to get baptized, this is the Sunday for you. So go to reallifechurchkc.com. You can get all of the information there. Make sure you get signed up. And if you want more information, obviously reach out to one of the members on our team, and we would love to help you on that journey to get baptized. So before we end today, have you guys enjoyed this series? Have you guys been loving it? These stories of this prodigal stories are just super powerful. And we're going to keep that going next week. So before we leave, I just want you guys to check out this video of our next prodigal story, Judy.
I'm the prodigal grandmother of Real Life Church, and they expect me to tell you my story in 30 seconds. It's not happening. It's not happening. Not in 30 seconds. So I'm inviting you to come next week and hear my story. Well, is that okay? And we got to do it again. You can clip all that now.
This may be a song.